mental health testing for every kid in school, and when they do some studies on this, they find out that about 10% of the kids are getting put on these drugs, and I think the evidence is strong that many kids on these drugs end up, participating in violent acts. So this is what the government does with drugs with all their good intentions. I think too often they end up doing a great deal of harm in the area which is called legal.
Now, many seek to treat medical marijuana out there as a non-profit industry. That's the plan in New Mexico, and what's in place in Oregon. Many are calling for that to be the case in California. But, is medical marijuana as non-profit, could that indicate that all medicine in America could be non-profit as well?
I wouldn't think so. The fact that marijuana is so prevalent, or could be, or would be so prevalent, there probably wouldn't be any profit in it. So I think it would just become pretty well available to individuals that wanted to use it. But to use that as a way to talk about nonprofit medicine, no, people have to get paid for their services, and there has to be a pricing mechanism. Otherwise, nobody knows how much services to provide or how many doctors to have. So the market has to work in pricing any service or any item. If you get rid of that, you invite a lot of problems. So a nonprofit approach to any medication, I think, is doomed to fail.
Now, that's very interesting, Congressman Paul, especially coming from your background as a medical doctor. Now, Congressman, we see that there is a stark racial disparity to prohibition enforcement in this country. Over 60% of U.S. counties arrest more people of color for marijuana alone, and some places even have more striking disparities like New York City, New York State. But do you think we've reached a point here where prohibition policy is simply a racist policy?
Well, I think it's turned into that, but I think it's always been a civil rights issue. It's your right to make your own choice about your life, and if you make a bad choice, you have to suffer the consequences. So it's part of the mentality that the government is our protector. So some liberals who don't like these laws against marijuana subscribe to laws that are, they provide the economic safety net, and therefore the government is assumed to be their protector in economic sense. Well, why wouldn't it be logical to go to the next step and say, well, they're to protect us in a physical sense from what we eat and drink and smoke? And, of course, this is the same mentality that leads to the runaway legislation after 9/11. But it's not a brand new idea. It started with economics and then on personal liberties and now on physical safety after 9/11. But I don't subscribe to that. I don't think the federal government should be a nanny state. But I think to win this fight, I think we all should be more consistent in arguing getting rid of the nanny state in all three areas, not just because one would lose credibility if they say, well, we want freedom of choice, on the drugs we take, but nothing else. We don't want true freedom of choice in economic policy, and we don't want true freedom of choice, when it comes to physical safety and security. So I think the principle has to be that the government is there to provide freedom, and freedom of choice, and the responsibilities fall on us in all the areas.
Now, Congressman, in your presidential run, the online polling following the MSNBC and Politico.com debate overwhelmingly declared you the winner of that debate. Let me ask here, during our podcast, how much you think the Internet and online media are perhaps beginning to affect politics.
Well, a lot of news these days first starts on the Internet, and then the Internet or the major media monitor the Internet, and then sometimes that, goes on and becomes mainstream in conventional media. And I think that's what's happening in the political sense, that we're getting tremendous attention on the Internet, and lo and behold, now we're getting a lot of major calls from major news networks, much more so than I ever got before. So I think it plays significantly. I don't think that you can totally win a campaign that way, only on the Internet. But it sure can get attention of the major media, and you can raise a lot of money. You can find supporters and volunteers. It's very, very big, much bigger now than it was even 4 years ago.
You've also been speaking about online freedom. Let me ask, are you a frequent internet user? How much are you online?
I constantly use it. It's my method of doing research and reading and finding public opinions, and I think it's fantastic. And also, I think what helps me on that is I am known for the greatest champion of keeping the internet totally free of government manipulation, which if you're in a conservative district like I am, it's a mixed bag because people are afraid you allow things on the internet that are taboo and they don't like, and in things that I wouldn't even endorse. But once again, I put the responsibility back on the individual and on the parents to monitor this and use of technology if there are things on the internet they don't like. But I don't want to tax the internet, and I don't want to ever regulate it. And when they did any surveys on voting patterns, I won that survey by a lot, that I'm the strongest defender of the internet. And I think young people are very much aware of that, and they like that position. For instance, I think one of the silliest things for people to do is lose money in gambling, yet I'm a champion of allowing you to make up your own mind just on what you smoke and drink. I think you should make up your own mind about whether you want to gamble or not, and if you lose money, you better not come crying to the government and say, I'm poor now, will you take care of me? I lost my shirt gambling on the internet. So freedom is great, but it does presume that individuals will assume responsibility for themselves, and that's the key to it.
Well, Congressman Paul, I know you're having a busy day there in Washington, D.C. I want to thank you again for taking time to speak with us here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Good to be with you.
Congressman Ron Paul represents the 14th District in Texas. He's running for the nomination of the Republican Party to run for President of the United States. We have links to his website on our website today at normalaudiostash.com.